Hey there, Mike here from MikeTemples.com, and in this video I want to do something slightly different. I want to talk about a book that I really like, and I think it's a must-read for every entrepreneur, but not only that, I think it's a must-read for everyone, because it's simply a great book. The book I'm talking about is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. So let's dive right into it. Okay, so first of all, who is Tim Ferriss, for those of you who don't know him? Tim Ferriss is author of the 4-Hour Workweek, which is a very famous and absolutely great book. If you haven't read that one yet, then read it. I really recommend that to you. And he's not only a famous New York Times bestselling author, but he's also the host of a podcast called The Tim Ferriss Show. And in this podcast, he basically interviews a lot of very famous people and a lot of people who are experts on their specific topics. So he has experts on health topics, he has experts on motivation, and also experts on business topics. There were people on his podcast like Tony Robbins, Peter Thiel, and Dominic D'Agostino, many others. So I really like this podcast, but the average podcast length is about 2 hours, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit shorter, but it isn't that easy to pick the best things from a 2 or 2.5 hour podcast, especially if you're not sitting there with a notepad and writing everything down. So what Tim has done with Tools of Titans is he has summed up the most important things and the most beneficial things from every single podcast in several pages. So he basically put together all the golden nuggets from each episode and wrote 5 to 10 pages in Tools of Titans. And that makes this book here the ultimate self-help guide. So the book is basically structured in 3 big parts. The first one being health, the second one being wealth, and the third one being wise. Each of those 3 big parts is divided in about 50 chapters. And each chapter is about one person. For example, Wim Hof, Tony Robbins, Kevin Rose, and a lot more. And what I really like about this book, you always find very, very good advice in it. So let's say I want to learn something new health-wise, then I just read one chapter of a famous health expert and I have probably his best knowledge compiled in 5 pages. And that's a huge advantage. It's much more convenient than listening to a 2-hour podcast episode. Now, if you read this book, I would highly recommend that you mark the most important parts. As you can see here, my book has a lot of markers in here. And not only that, I have also marked the text in here, the most important things in the text. So just to name a few of the great ideas in this book, Tim found that around 80% of his podcast guests do meditation or some sort of priming in the morning. I'm a huge fan of meditation and I do this for I think 1.5 years now. I do 10 minutes of meditation every morning and it had a huge positive effect on my life. Another interesting thing I learned from this book is the Wim Hof method. For those of you who don't know Wim Hof, he is also called the Iceman and he's famous for extreme cold water exposure. He was able to stay in an ice tank for I think 2 or 2.5 hours. He was also able to climb into the death zone of Mount Everest with nothing but shorts and shoes. And I think that's pretty impressive. So I tried the Wim Hof method for I think 20 days now. There was kind of a challenge for me. So I basically did a special breathing technique every morning and then right away hopped under a ice cold shower. And I really like this. This really kicks ass in the morning and it's also a great challenge for you, a great challenge to build your willpower. So Even though if you don't get the book, then Google Wim Hof and try it. I really like that challenge. There is so much great advice in this book, regardless of what problem you're having right now. I'm 99% sure that there's a solution for that specific problem in this book. This is not just a book you read like a usual book. Tim has written a chapter called How to Use this book with several rules. For example, rule number 1 is skip liberally. He says in this chapter, my goal is for each reader to like 50%, love 25%, and never forget 10%. Here's why. For the millions who've heard the podcast and the dozens who proofread this book, the 50, 25, 10 highlights are completely different for every person. It's blown my mind. To be honest, I didn't skip a single chapter, but I definitely agree with this rule. There are some parts I really love, some parts I can't really resonate with, and some parts I just like. And all in all, it's a great book. As you can see, my book is full of these colorful markers here, and every time I have a problem with my health or my wealth, or I just want to learn something new, I have a look through my markers and I nearly always find something great in there. So if you only read one book per year, then make it this one. I've linked the book for you down in the description. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope I got you interested in this book, because I think this is one of the best books I've read in a very, very long time, and I read a lot. If you enjoyed watching this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.